Hello there. Joining some sort of coalition or agreement with the Tories is fraught with danger, Nigel. So watch your back. The story is that allies of both the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage and the former, maybe future, Tory leadership hopeful Robert Jenrick met in the In and Out Private Members Club last week to talk about working in the national interest to defeat Labour at the next general election, with Boris Johnson possibly playing the Phoenix as the Tory frontrunner. The Mail broke the story with Nigel Farage is prepared to work with Boris Johnson to defeat Labour in the national interest, sources close to the Reform UK leader have told the Mail on Sunday. Based on current polling, a Reform Tory mega party would trounce Sir Keir Starmer, who is shedding votes as his stumbling government experiences an unprecedented post-election collapse in support. So, with the front runner as being Boris Johnson, although the sources concerned insist that neither Farage nor Jenrick have sanctioned these talks. So it seems strange that they would meet and talk to a newspaper about it then, doesn't it? Especially as the Mail goes on to say, with the Conservatives languishing in third place in some polls and many of the party's millionaire backers starting to switch to Reform, the sources said that Mr. Farage could set aside ego to serve in a combined operation. Now, I do have to ask, where did that statement about Farage come from, if he hasn't sanctioned the talks? So how then can this be true? Now, the current Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, has ruled out any such agreement with Reform UK. But there are 4 long years to go until the 2029 general election, and I don't think Kemi will last the distance. She'll end up as the caretaker leader. Anyway, Richard, what do you think?
Well, Jeff, I think this is a bit of a strange turn of events, to be honest with you. Not unexpected. We have heard grumblings for quite a while that a few years ago that Nigel Farage was going to possibly even be the Tory leader. I don't know if you remember those rumours.
Yeah.
Quite a while ago. I'm not so sure. I don't know. I mean, this is clearly been... If this is some sort of, we'll just drip feed this, it's been done very badly. If this is a drip feed, I mean, if they would, to be honest with you, if they wanted to come straight out with it, that would have been probably the better way to do this. I don't think there is a good way of saying, oh, by the way, you thought Reform was the answer, the alternative. Well, unfortunately, we're about to get into bed with the Tories, who incidentally mandated certain things, which a lot of you watching this will not be happy with. And yes, mate, honestly, I can't see this happening. I'm hoping it's not going to happen, because this is going to lead a lot of people away from Reform. A lot of people will not be happy with this. For a long time, Ben Habib, he said that we don't need to become the Tory party Mark II effectively. We are
Correct.
Our own thing. And to be honest with you, I think Reform has built itself upon being its own thing. Yes, a little coziness towards the Tories is going to pull sort of more of the centre-right towards Reform. That's obvious. But I mean, this could even then sort of on the other side of the spectrum, if there is a cozying up to the Tories, of course, those Labour supporters that Reform has attracted, it's going to annoy them. So what's going on? I feel very uncomfortable about this one, Jeff.
Yeah. And Johnson back from the political graveyard? No one was talking about him last week, were they? So where's this come from? I mean, everybody had just about forgotten the character, hadn't they? So suddenly he's back in the forefront again. You have to wonder where that came from, don't you? But if Nigel Farage did say, right, okay, we're going to partly or wholly get into bed with the Tories, which policies would Nigel Farage have to drop or water down for such an agreement with the Tory wets? Now, remember, politicians do not select themselves. Many Tory constituency parties are infested with woke liberal types, and they are the ones who select the woke liberal MPs that infest the Tory party. Reform would be expected to bow to some of that, to be centrist, to not be extreme in any manner, in exactly the same way that the Tories are now. And that's what got them into this electoral, death spiral at the end of the day. What do you reckon, Richard?
Yes, something that's just occurred to me, actually, is have you noticed how Nigel Farage's rhetoric has changed over the past 12 months? Especially on things like he totally going against any notion of mass deportations. He said that on the Winston Marshall show. And yet his good friend Donald Trump is saying, no, it can be done. It can be done. Sorry, I have to say Nigel Farage did say that it's impractical to expect a government to be able to undertake or even push forward a policy of mass deportations. Yet there is Donald Trump doing exactly that, getting on with it. Yeah. All the things that Farage said were impossible, Trump's doing. I'm like, okay, Nigel, has something changed? I'm wondering if this has been going on for quite a while, in other words, for quite a few months, that there has been a cozying up to the Tories and a potential election pact in the background. I don't know. We have to watch and wait and see what happens. But this is not a good look, to be honest with you, for reform, if it's true. I mean, yes, it's been denied, but there's a few question marks over that denial, and sometimes there's a little bit too much smoke with no obvious sign of fire.
Yeah, I mean, Andrea Jenkins, who came across from the Tories to Reform UK, claims that the story is just fake news, that it didn't happen. Or if it did, she said, she was talking to Camilla Tominey, I think it was yesterday or this morning, and she said that it's just fake news. And the only way it could have happened, any meeting last week could have happened, would be with people who are very much removed from the decision makers in either party. But the very fact they're talking about it, and you know something, in any pact with the Tories, at the end of the day, I reckon the Tories will still stand a candidate in every single seat in 2029, while expecting Reform UK to do a 2019 back down at the last minute again, something like that, or not even stand or be part of the whole setup, which will basically make them Tories. The Reform UK must avoid getting sucked into the Tory party. Don't do it.
Yeah.
What do you reckon? Would you do it, Richard?
I think it's a very, very dangerous situation. I do, to be honest with you. All the gains I can't say all the gains could be lost if they do cozy up to the Tories, because a lot of the traditional Conservatives are going to be flooding over to Reform. But that makes the Reform effectively just the Conservative Party rebranded. And that's what I'm frightened of. Again, if there's an election tomorrow, I'd still be voting Reform right now. The only game in town that could, even if we're not going to get the change we want, at least it would be hopefully a political party that would halt the decline, and we would get some freedom of speech back. And then we could start looking at other political parties if Reform are not up to the task. Personally, I will still be looking at UKIP. I have more support for UKIP than I do for Reform, but I wouldn't be voting UKIP. That's a totally different thing. I think parties like UKIP need to be bolstered in the background, whilst the vote is targeted towards, for the sake of this nation, towards Reform.
Yeah. And the other question that springs to mind is, if Labour is tanking in the polls, why the need for a coalition this far away from an election, which at the moment, the Labour Party is doing everything it can to lose, absolutely everything. We thought that the Tories were were bad at approaching elections. We're 4 years away from the next one. Labour is tanking already. So I don't see the point of any moves in that direction right now. You should be building your own party. And remember, with the Tories, they are experts at destroying coalition partners, aren't they? The Lib Dems fared well, didn't they, over the university tuition fees and all that, and that destroyed the Lib Dems for 10 years. I mean, they've recovered now, but it's been very difficult for them. And maybe that's where the Tories want Farage and Reform UK, a destroyed junior partner for a decade or so. Don't trust a Tory.
Yes, and I think moving forward, if Reform, unless of course, let's think. I'm just playing devil's advocate here, my favourite thing to play, and I do think that if Reform were to take the leading role in a coalition, and basically the Tories were utterly subservient, and that kind of a pact was put together, possibly, and that could happen, I could imagine, possibly with Robert Jenrick as party leader, but certainly not with Boris Johnson. Oh no, he won't take a back seat. No. Nope. His ego is gargantuan, and I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. So I'm just trying to war game this, and I can't see a positive result unless, of course, Farage was to take the leading role. But again, how many people are going to be just put off by any kind of deep association with the Tories? Because it would be a deep association. This would not be some kind of cozying up to. If it is some kind of grand coalition, effectively, for want of a better terminology, I don't know, mate. I just really fear for Reform. I do fear for Reform. If it's going to be some cozying up, I'm just trying to think and work my way through this, and there's no good outcomes unless. Yeah,
and remember that Nigel Farage, what was his avowed intention? To destroy the Tory party. It was to destroy it. But if he's going to cozy up to it, help it, beef it up a bit, give it some credence, it's not destroying it. He's tying himself to an albatross, probably. He seems to be tying up with a sort of a Lib Dem-infested Tory party in the hope of capturing the centre ground. I think that's something you said earlier. And so he wants the centre ground. So, well, if I can capture the Tory party, get them on side, they've got a big centre ground, woke, lefty, blobby sort of centre ground. Maybe they'll come across. But you'll lose loads of Labour supporters, as you said, as well. And all it will do is turn Reform UK into Tory-like Tory 2.0. And I think he will alienate the supporters he already has if he does that. Got to remember, I mean, the latest poll puts Reform on 24%, leading both Labour and the Tories on 23%, and they've still got 4 years to go. As I said, is it not a bit too early to try and make pacts with those that would happily see you destroyed? I mean, the Tories would love Reform to get to inwardly implode, wouldn't they? So why cozy up to them?
Yes, I agree. I think that Reform have everything to play for with their previous, I should say, trajectory. I'd have rather if it was a little further down further in the past trajectory when they were looking at a different view, we shall say, to the immigration issue. But that's softened quite considerably now. And it was around the time I think the Zia Youssef came into the party, and not into the party, but became party chairman, and Ben Habib left. I wonder if there's any correlation there. I don't know. But they still have everything to play for, standing on their own. My goodness, where would they be if they hardened up a little bit? Because it's not people aren't going to Reform for soft Tory policies. Let's face it, or for Labour policies. They are heading towards Reform because they can see a political party that potentially does offer great change, or at least has the potential to. I mean, maybe Reform, let's again throw a few ideas out there. Maybe Reform and Nigel Farage is playing a little bit of a clever game and saying, oh, he's been a little bit liberal lefty, playing up to them. But as soon as he gets into power, look out. That's when you'd see more of the Trump side of things possibly coming out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Very difficult to
Not
say,
sure.
Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And I think it's going to be a funny few months and possibly a funny couple of years. I don't see anything becoming very, what's the word, sort of gelling together until a couple of years from the next general election. When we begin to see people's ideas begin to, into something that's cohesive, and you can see where reform is actually going, where you can see the Tories are actually going.
Yes.
I don't think we'll see that yet. I think we're still sniping around the edges, trying to see what the people will accept. They're still trying to formulate stuff. What can push ideas like we're talking about today to see whether the people like that idea, or not. And we'll see a lot of that for the next couple of years. It's going to be a bit funny, but by say 2027, I think we'll have a much clearer idea of where these people want to go, and we might not be so happy with some of it, because in politics there are always winners and losers, and that includes people supporting the Reform UK Party and Nigel Farage.
Yes.
So it'd be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, I totally agree, Jeff.
Yes. Anyway, so on that note, we agree for once, Richard. So on that note, I think it's a great time to say it's good morning from me.
And it's good morning from him. Good morning.
Good morning.